Again, I haven't reviewed the communications tape. It was an earlier question, so I don't know.
Did you order that there be no smoking or eating permitted within the crime scene area?
I did not.
Have you obtained a detailed report of what all the officers at the crime scene reported and the actions they took immediately upon arrival at the crime scene?
Yes.
Have you ascertained how many officers have gained entry into the crime scene prior to your arrival?
Yes, that should be contained within their statements.
Have you asked the officers to recreate their movements?
Yes. I have not personally. It was done by Detective Phillips.
So that's all recorded as
in my direction, yes.
Did you ascertain if any officers smoked at the crime scene?
That too would be contained in their statements.
Did you ascertain if any of the officers or any media personnel drank any coffee at the crime scenes?
Well, objection, that's vague. And
When you say crime scenes, do you mean now both Rockingham and...
Well, there's 3 crime scenes. There's Chicago. Would you agree there are 3 crime scenes in this investigation?
I would agree that there are 2 and perhaps a third, which I would term a potential crime scene.
Let's talk about the 2 that you would determine as crime scenes. Do you have any knowledge of anybody drinking coffee within the areas of the crime scene after they were cordoned off?
At the scene, directly at the scene, no, I don't. I am not aware of anyone who was drinking coffee.
As the officer in charge, would you say that both crime scenes were protected from destruction or contamination of evidence by onlookers as well as news media personnel?
Okay, number one, I was primarily in charge of and directed the investigation at the Bundy scene. I was not at the Rockingham scene, but for a short time. I was satisfied that the Bundy scene was in fact secured, yes.
Who was in charge of the Rockingham scene?
Detective Vannatter.
Would you agree or disagree that standing or walking at the crime scene, leaning against all doors, walls, or windows may destroy valuable evidence, latent fingerprints, hair, or skin specimens?
That possibility.
irrelevant.
Sustained.
I just have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Did you determine if any police officer checked the shoes of the witnesses who discovered the bodies?
It was related to me that I believe that was done around the time that the dog's paws were observed, but I did not direct that, nor do I have any personal knowledge of that.
Are there any reports to indicate that was done?
There may well be. Within the officers section, I haven't had a time to review those.
Is there somebody you could check with now to see if there are such notes?
Well, again, all of the notes and statements aren't in. I suppose I could check the officers section. I am not aware whether that would be in there or not, though.
How many footprints other that would relate to shoes in blood did you observe at Bundy?
I don't have the number.
Has anybody calculated the number?
That was assigned to the criminalists. Again, as the footprints moved away in a westerly direction, they faded. So I don't know that you'd get an accurate number, but they were charted by the criminalists.
They were?
I'm sorry?
They were or weren't charted?
Charted.
They were charted?
Well, by charted, I'm referring to photographed and measured, and I requested a so-called stride analysis.
Have you received that yet?
No. Again, I may have it in my reports. I have hundreds, and I haven't been through them all.
Would you check, because we have not received that yet either?
There's a good chance that we haven't either.
Well, I'd ask that we conduct this discovery procedure off the record.
Mr. Shapiro, you're entitled to that, but let's have the witness check on that.
Thank you. I'm not
later.
going to ask him to do that now.
Okay.
Were you able to determine whether the blood imprints from a shoe were all from the same shoe?
Objection, that calls for speculation, no foundation.
Are you able to give an answer to that question?
No, Your Honor.
Has anybody reported to you that there were more than one type of shoe print with blood on it at the scene?
No.
Have you talked to the criminalist about this?
In regards to these shoe prints, no.
Is that something that you would deem important?
Objection vague. What? Something that you would deem important?
Speaking to the criminalist about the shoes?
Yes.
What about the shoes, though? That they existed, that they were the same shoe, that it was the same tread, that they existed at all, where they were found?
Well, I interpret that question to relate to whether there was more than one maker of the shoe prints.
That was my understanding, Your Honor.
With that understanding, can you answer that?
Yes, and that it's my belief that the shoe prints probably belong to a suspect or were left by a suspect, and we would certainly like to find out what type of shoe they are.
I'm sorry, your voice is trailing, and I can't hear the end of the answer.
You'd like to find out what?
Could you repeat the question again? Here, I want to give you an accurate answer.
Have you discussed with the criminalist whether or not the blood prints from the shoes indicate one pair of shoes or more than one pair of shoes?
In a general discussion at the time, at the crime scene location, it was the opinion of the criminalist that it appeared that there were one. To my knowledge, these prints have not been analyzed and the work has not been completed. So I've made no other requests at this time and had no other conversations regarding it.
Do you have a report indicating how many spots of blood were found at the Bundy residence that you referred to as drops that did not belong to Nicole Brown or Ronald Goldman?
I may have that report, yes.
Do you know offhand how many that was?
It seems to me it was initially 5 droplets on the walkway.
And have you or anybody at your direction ascertained when those droplets originated?
When?
Yes. How long they have been there?
I don't believe there's any way to determine that.
I don't have any further questions at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark, do you have any redirect?
Yes, thank you. Sir, do you have other detectives assisting you on this case besides Detective Vannatter?
Yes.
And is it fairly common in the homicide special section to have other detectives in the unit assist in the investigation of one team of detectives?
Yes.
And are you aware at this time of every piece of work or report that each of those detectives has generated?
No.
Would you say that this investigation is an ongoing one with reports being generated every day?
Yes.
As time goes by, do you expect to catch up with the reports that have been generated in this case?
I hope so.
And to read everything that you have?
Yes.
And to confer with all of the experts in the case?
Yes.
With respect to the criminalist, sir, at this time, the shoe prints have been preserved with respect to the blood and the swabbing and the photographing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Has there been any attempt to analyze those shoe prints any further at this point by that criminalist?
I don't believe so.
Is it your intention to have that done?
Yes.
Are there many things that you intend to have done in this case before it proceeds to trial?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the form of the question and assume it's a fact that the court is going to hopefully determine.
Sustained.
Motion to strike the motion.
Stricken.
All I meant, I'm sorry, and all I meant by that was, as the case goes on, there are going to be many things to do, assuming the case goes on.
We have a man who's in custody without bail, and I think that's a very improper question and is very prejudicial.
I don't know.
Overruled.
Let me ask you this, sir. In the course of every case that you have handled, and you indicated you've handled 200 to 300 homicides,
Yes.
is the investigation always ongoing?
Yes.
And at the stage of a preliminary hearing for every one of those homicides, is the investigation an ongoing thing?
Yes.
With many things left to do at the stage of the preliminary hearing.
Yes.
And this case is no exception.
That's correct.
Is it unusual to get leads from multiple suspects during the course of an investigation, sir?
No.
In fact, during the course of an entire case?
No.
And if you don't personally go out to investigate those leads, you do assign those leads to be investigated by someone?
Yes.
You were asked by counsel why you didn't look for other similar homicides,
I believe it was something like that, yes.
and you indicated you did not.
Yes.
Why?
Well, again, we're in the very early stages of this investigation. At this particular point, this would not be an appropriate time to do it. There is a suspect in custody, and we are proceeding against that particular suspect. Eventually, this is probably something that very possibly could be done, or it may not be done.
And when we say similar homicides, did you understand that to mean like a serial killing?
I didn't know exactly what he was referring to.
Sir, is it common in an investigation, particularly with respect to a homicide, to have neighbors in the immediate vicinity contacted by police officers to determine what, if anything, they saw or heard?
Yes.
Was that done in this case?
Yes.
And although, did you direct that it be done?
Yes.
Now, you indicated that in the log, a captain of the fire department did show up on the scene, and it was indicated in your log that he was not needed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does it indicate in your log how long he was at the scene?
If I could consult the log.
Certainly.
The log indicates he was at the scene for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yes.
In your experience, sir, is it common for captains of the fire department to interact with the bodies of homicide victims?
It would depend, possibly, perhaps not.
The fact that he was shown to be there only 5 minutes with an indication that he was not needed, what did that mean to you?
Objection.
Overruled.
To me, it would mean that he was aware that the incident had occurred, and he was dropping by as the supervisor to see if the fire department's assistance might be needed for anything.
Did it indicate to you that he had had any interaction with the bodies of the victims?
No.
It indicated to you that it did not? Did that indicate to you that he did not have any interaction with the bodies of the victims?
Sustained.
In your experience, sir, is it generally the paramedics who have interaction with the bodies?
Yes.
And when that occurs before you arrive at a crime scene, in your experience, sir, when you come on the scene after they have attended to the bodies, is there some way that you can tell they have been there before you?
Yes, I will leave the ambulance slip.
An ambulance slip?
Ambulance slip indicating that they've been there in the unit and the time of death and this type of thing.
Is there something about the condition of the bodies of the victims that tells you that paramedics have been there to attend to them before you arrived?
Sometimes, if the paramedics have been there, the body position will be altered.
Have you ever seen the electrocardiogram, the pads that they use for reviving someone, that they place on them to revive the heart?
Yes.
And did you see that in this case?
No.
But that is frequently left on the bodies of victims when paramedics have attended to them before you arrived?
Yes.
Was there anything about the bodies as you saw them in this case that indicated to you that they had been disturbed by anyone in any way?
No.
Do you happen to know when the coroner's investigator arrived?
I have that notated here in my log, if I may. Investigator Ratcliffe arrived at 9:10 a.m.
Where were you at that time, sir?
I was at the Bundy location.
So you saw the coroner's investigator arrive?
Yes.
Isn't it policy, sir, that no one is to touch the body of a victim before the coroner's investigator arrives?
That's correct.
And you were present when that coroner's investigator got there?
Yes.
You indicated, I think, that you did not direct anyone to not smoke or drink at the crime scene at 875 South Bundy.
Yes.
Why didn't you?
It's generally a given that an officer has been trained and knows better than to smoke or eat at a crime scene. If someone had been observed doing that, we'd have jumped on them right away. That is not tolerated at a crime scene, and that's general knowledge.
So when there's tape around the scene that has been secured with the police tape as a barrier, whatever's inside that scene, no one is allowed to go in there and do anything like smoke or drink or eat.
That's correct.
And if something like that were to occur, it would be very unusual,
Yes,
and a report would be made?
certainly.
Was there any such report made in this case?
Not to my knowledge.
Was there any indication made to you that the crime scene at 875 South Bundy was disturbed in that manner behind the yellow tape in any way?
No.
You indicated that it was more important to get a criminalist to Rockingham Avenue than to the Bundy address at one point during your testimony on cross-examination. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why?
The Bundy location was a secured location. The victims, the evidence were secure. Nothing was going anywhere. At the Rockingham location, it was an unsecured location. There was a vehicle that was parked at that location with a possible blood stain on it that we wanted analyzed. It was parked partially blocking the street. Again, it was unsecured, and we needed that possible blood stain to be analyzed first. It just made sense because we had the other location secured. So we wanted the Rockingham thing out of the way, and that criminalist then was to proceed on to Bundy.
Well, you indicated earlier that the Rockingham address was not a crime scene, and
It was
that no
not
crime
one.
scene log was generated for it because it was not a crime scene. Can you explain that?
When I was at the location, it was not a crime scene. The criminalist, when I was there, well, the criminalist that was requested was there to only test the blood on the Bronco vehicle. I left before the criminalist arrived.
In the 200 to 300 homicides that you've investigated, sir, has it ever occurred before that you have left a crime scene before it was completed in the processing?
Seems to me there have been instances, yes.
And that when you left the crime scene in previous cases, before the processing was complete, you intended to return?
Yes.
Was that your intention when you left 875 South Bundy for the Rockingham address?
Yes.
Did you expect to be back fairly quickly?
Yes.
So when you left Lieutenant Rogers at the 875 South Bundy address, and I believe you indicated earlier you did not intend for him to process the crime scene for you, you left him there thinking that you were going to be back in a few minutes?
Yes, short time.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Shapiro?
Detective, to your knowledge, does the Los Angeles Police Department employ more than one criminalist?
Yes.
And if you wanted two criminalists at two different scenes, would that be available to you?
I don't know.
Did you try?
Did I try?
Yes.
No.
You were present at the autopsy.
Yes.
You've talked to the coroner who conducted it.
Yes.
You were present and directed the crime scene photographs to be taken.
Yes.
You were present and directed the criminalist in his activities.
Yes.
And you later caused to be purchased a stiletto knife from Ross Cutlery. Is that correct?
No.
Did anyone from your department purchase a stiletto knife from Ross Cutlery?
Yes.
You're aware of that knife?
Oh, yes.
You've seen it?
Yes.
You've shared that with the criminalist?
I'm sorry, shared it?
Have you showed it to the criminalist?
I don't know if it was shown to a criminalist or not.
Did you show it to the coroner?
No.
Is it your opinion that this knife, or one substantially similar to it, was the murder weapon?
Be pure conjecture with the knowledge that I have in regards to that knife.
In that case, calls for speculation. Objection.
Sustained.
Nothing further.
Ms. Clark, anything else?
One question, Your Honor. Sir, is it preferable to use one criminalist in a case to process all of the scenes related to one case?
Yes.
And why is that?
To maintain a certain order and custody of evidence, to have one person with knowledge of more than one scene, someone who is up on everything that's going on with both scenes. It's important for chain of custody of evidence. It's important to be on the same page with the criminalist, and it would be very difficult to employ more than one criminalist, and this was absolutely necessary.
And if you have one criminalist who processes all scenes, he's going to know what's important at each scene because he's seen them all. And he may pick up things that you haven't.
Oh, yes.
I have nothing further.
Anything further?
This witness may be excused.
Thank you very much, sir. You may step down. Do not
you.
discuss your testimony with anyone but the lawyers in the matter. Next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor, people call Detective Vannatter. Recall.
Yes.
I would offer to stipulate that Detective Vannatter's testimony during motion to suppress and be incorporated and be made part of the record for the court.
Is that agreeable, Ms. Clark?
Yes, it is. Thank you,
All
counsel.
right. Do we still need then to hear from Detective Van
We
Natter?
do for just a few matters, actually.
I think I've said this before. You've previously been sworn and remain under oath. Please have a seat in the witness stand.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
State and spell your name.
Philip Vannatter, Philip Vannatter.
Thank you. Give me a word.
Sir, did you attend the autopsies of the victims in this matter, Ron Goldman and Nicole Simpson?
Yes, I did.
And in the course of that autopsy, sir, did you observe the coroner to recover blood from each of the victims, blood samples.
Yes,
Did you recover those vials from the coroner's lab and return them somewhere?
yes, I did.
Those vials of blood samples that you recovered from each of the victims, how were they packaged when you recovered them?
They were packaged in small glass vials with a purple top.
Did they bear some number or description?
Yes, they did.
Can you tell us what that was?
Certainly, they had the victims' names and the coroner case number that corresponds to their names on the vial.
Showing you people's two and three, sir, can you tell me whether the people depicted in these photographs are the ones whose autopsies you attended?
Yes, they are. Yes.
And they are
Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson.
in people's 2 and 3 respectively, Your Honor.
All right.
I'm sorry, sir, you described the packaging. Did that bear a number?
Yes, it did.
What number was that?
The coroner's case number for Mr. Goldman was 945135, and the number for Nicole Brown Simpson was 945136.
And that was on the packages?
That was on a label on the glass vial itself.
And what did you do with those vials?
I hand carried those to Scientific Investigation Division, Los Angeles Police Department, and handed them over to a employee there, Colin Yamauchi.
What does he do at the police department, sir?
He's an employee of the Scientific Investigation Division that works in the serology department.
And on what date did you deliver those to him?
That would have been the morning after the autopsy, would have been June the 15th.
Now, you've earlier testified concerning a glove that was seen at the south side of the property at 360 Rockingham.
Yes.
Let me show you a photograph. I'd like to be marked People's 21, Your Honor,
All right.
and ask you if this depicts that glove that you saw at the south side of the property in the position in which you saw it.
Yes, it does.
Now, you indicated that yesterday, sir, at approximately 7:30, you left the Rockingham address to secure a search warrant.
That's correct.
What time did you return to the Rockingham address?
Shortly after 11:30 in the morning.
And when you returned, did you see anyone outside the gates of the Rockingham address?
Yes.
Who did you see?
I saw Mr. Howard Weitzman and Mr. Taff, Mr. Skip Taff.
And where were they, if you recall? What gate?
They were standing at the Rockingham gate along the north side of the gate.
And where were you when you saw them?
I had just parked my car and was walking into the gate, walking toward the residence.
Did you make contact with them?
I spoke to Mr. Weitzman, yes, because I recognized him, and he spoke to me.
After you spoke to Mr. Weitzman, what happened next?
I continued into the residence with the search warrant, was there a short time, and I had left instructions with officers. I had left instructions with officers, and 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 I if Mr. Simpson arrived at the location, to keep him from coming into the residence. And shortly after that period, while I was inside, I looked out and I saw Mr. Simpson at the location.
Did you make contact with him, sir?
Yes.
When you made contact with him, did you notice anything unusual about either of his hands?
Not at first. When I first made contact with him, he had handcuffs on.
What-
Shortly after making contact with him, I removed the handcuffs, and I noticed a bandage on his left hand, the left middle finger in the upper joint area.
Now, at some point, did you and the defendant proceed downtown?
Yes.
Now, when I said Mr. Simpson, then I said the defendant. Do you see Mr. Simpson in court today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please point him out?
Certainly. He's wearing the dark blue suit, seated at the end of the council table there.
Indicating the defendant.
And you transported him downtown?
That's correct, yes.
Did anyone else accompany you downtown?
Yes, another detective from Robbery Homicide Division.
And did anyone else meet you downtown at the same time?
Yes,
Who was that?
Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Taft.
Once downtown, did you make some effort to document the condition of his left middle finger?
I did.
What did you do?
I took him to the photography lab of the police department and had it photographed.
Did you cause a blood sample to be taken from Mr. Simpson?
I did.
And did you get his consent to do so?
Yes.
Were you present when that blood was taken?
Yes, I was.
And was the vial given to you after it was taken?
Yes.
What did you do with that vial?
I kept that vial in my possession and hand-carried it to criminalist Dennis Fong and turned it over to him to be booked with the evidence.
And that vial was, did you do it on the same day that the blood was taken from the defendant?
Yes, the 13th.
Of June?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, Your Honor.
All right.
I have your photograph, Your Honor. I said if you marked Peoples 22.
All right. I don't have any photos. We have a 21.
Can we approach? If I can just put on a record, I have checked with the lawyers and investigators from my office, and we do not believe that we have received a copy of this photograph. I could take a moment and check with the criminalists, but my recollection is we have not seen this photograph, and the date on this photograph is June 21st of 91.
91?
Of 94, I'm sorry. I can't say with or without my glasses.
May I indicate what's on the photograph, Your Honor?
Yeah, there are two gloves and a ruler.
2 gloves, each of them bearing an item number that has already been related to this case. What it does is depict the glove recovered from the crime scene and the glove recovered from the house side by side. I would be delighted to provide counsel with a copy of that photograph if he feels that he does not have one. I thought we had given him copies of all photographs. This is not a crime scene photograph at all. It's a lab photograph.
So this is a photo that was taken at the crime lab itself?
Yes.
Do you have a series of such photos from the crime lab?
I don't. As far as I know, that's the only one. But I don't know. I thought counsel had all photographs, Your Honor. So I'll certainly have it duplicated for him. Not a problem. It doesn't constitute any evidence that he has not already seen. It simply puts the 2 items together in one picture.
Well, then perhaps we could use another item of evidence that we have already seen for the purposes of this examination at this time and give us an opportunity to examine this photograph.
Well, I'll give you a chance to examine that photograph. Do you have other evidence that you can present with regard to this at this point?
Well, I don't know how long it takes counsel to look at a picture of 2 gloves, but I'd be glad to wait until he's satisfied himself that he can match the item numbers of the gloves with the item numbers on his property report and the appearance of those gloves with the appearance of the gloves in the photographs he's already got.
I would say it would take me time to get expert witnesses from New York and other parts of the United States to review this. I obviously am capable of looking at it and see it has 2 gloves. If that is the only purpose of this photograph, I think Detective Vannatter can identify hundreds of pictures of gloves that we have. It is just ironic that there is one picture that we don't have that they want to use for some reason.
It's one photograph that we have that shows the 2 gloves in one place side by side. That's all, Your Honor. I don't understand counsel's objection. I don't see why it takes an expert to look at a picture of 2 gloves.
Mr. Shapiro, I'm not going to preclude Ms. Clark from utilizing this photo. I take her word for the fact that it is a photo of apparently the gloves that we've heard testimony concerning in this preliminary hearing. You are entitled to a copy of it. They've indicated that they would provide one to you. When can that be provided, do you know?
Right now.
You have an extra copy? Okay, you have a smaller version of what he's holding in his hand?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Let's hand that over to defense counsel.
Are there any other photographs that we haven't received now?
Your Honor,
I don't know.
I've just been handed a series of photographs that all are crime lab photographs of these gloves. I believe counsel does have them, but I'll be glad to give him these again and have another set made for myself.
We have inventory each item of evidence that has been received, and we have not received it.
That presentation was made to me yesterday, and then other counsel for the defense indicated they did indeed have what they said they didn't have, so I would ask for Mr. Shapiro to examine the items he's been given to date again.
Is that something you can do in a short period of time?
Yeah.
Look at your photographs.
Well, how do we know when he has back in his office, Your Honor? I'm turning over all of these photographs that were taken at the crime lab. These are my only set, and ordinarily we order 2 sets, which would indicate to me that counsel has his. But in abundance of caution, I'm going to turn them over again, and I'll get another set for myself.
Last time we got these, we got a bill for $4,000.
May I proceed?
Yes, let's proceed.
They're showing you what is now marked as People's 22. Do you recognize what I'm showing you?
Yes, I do.
Now, do you see beneath each of these gloves that there's an item number?
I do.
What's an item number?
That's a item number of a piece of evidence that's been recovered and booked as evidence with our crime lab.
And are you familiar with the property report that lists the item numbers for the evidence that was recovered in this case, sir?
Yes, I am.
Were each of the gloves recovered, the one at the 875 South Bundy address and the one at the 360 Rockingham address, given separate item numbers?
Yes, they were.
Do you recognize the item numbers shown in People's 22?
I do.
Can you tell us, sir, whether those are the item numbers that go to each of those respective addresses for each glove?
Yes, item number 9 is a glove that was recovered at 360 Rockingham, and item 37 is a glove that was recovered at 875 South Bundy.
Now, do items also receive a second number, a photograph number?
They normally get what's called a C number that's issued by the photography department, and in the crime report, DR number is affixed also.
For example, in the exhibit next to you, which is People's 19 in B, C, actually all of them, you see these numbers?
Yes.
Are those are photo numbers, sir,
Yes.
as opposed to item numbers?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to these series of photographs being shown. The rear sideline.
Yes, will be heard in chambers. In chambers. There's not a realistic sidebar here in this courtroom with as many lawyers as we have.
Well, I'll take the exhibit back.
Pardon me?
Shall I take the exhibit back?
Sure. Exhibit back, reporter please, and the attorney. All right, we're again on the record in the case of People versus Simpson. The defendant is present with counsel. The people are represented. The detective's on the witness stand. Ms. Clark?
Is the objection was overruled, Your Honor?
That's correct.
Thank you. Ask that the series of photographs be marked as People's 23.
All right.
So showing you People's 23. Can you tell us if you recognize what's being shown here?
Yes, I recognize it.
First of all, tell us what's in photograph A.
Photograph A is a picture of Mr. Simpson's left hand, middle finger at the upper knuckle that that was taken at my direction in the photo lab.
Does it accurately depict the condition of that knuckle as you saw it when you had the picture taken at Parker Center?
Yes.
Was there only one cut on that finger, sir?
There was a smaller laceration down toward the first knuckle that doesn't show up there very well. It was a small laceration that run in across the finger and down.
Now, the gloves that are shown in B and C of People's 23,
Yes?
do you recognize those, sir?
Yes.
And what are those?
Those are the two gloves that were found at 875 South Bundy and 360 North Rockingham.
Now, the glove in photograph B contains item number 9. You can see that?
Yes, I can see that.
And as you earlier testified, that was the glove that was recovered from the Rockingham address?
That's correct, yes.
In photograph C, we have number 102 shown as to that glove.
Okay.
Does that reflect a photo number or an item number?
That reflects a photo number.
And are the photo numbers and item numbers correlated?
Yes, they are in the property report.
So that photo number 102 would correlate to item number 37?
That's correct, yes.
Describe the position of the glove as it's shown in photograph B. Is that palm up or is that the back of the hand up?
That's the palm of the glove that's facing up.
And in photograph C, can you tell?
May I step down where I can? Thank you. That's the back portion of the glove that's facing up.
And in photograph 22, are these both palm up or are they palm down?
These are both palm up, showing the palm of the glove.
Did you observe the backs of the gloves, sir? The back of the hand of each glove?
At what point?
At any point. Have you ever observed them?
I saw the gloves in their original location, and I was also present when the gloves were shown to the defense at Scientific Investigation Division. So during this period, yes, I have seen the back of them.
Can you tell us if they're plain on the back or there's any kind of design on the back of the hand?
There appears to be a rib design on the back of the glove, leading toward the back portion or wrist portion of the glove.
You were gesturing with
Straight,
lines.
straight lines.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further.
Cross.
Detective Vannatter, when you caused to have Mr. Simpson's index finger photographed, did you ask for a criminalist to examine it?
No, I did not.
Did you ask for a medical examiner to examine it?
As it was being photographed?
Yes.
No, sir.
Did you ask for a doctor to examine it?
No, sir.
Did you ask for a nurse to examine it?
At a later date, I did, yes, or at a later time, I asked for a nurse to examine it.
I'm not saying the photograph, I'm saying the finger.
The finger, yes.
So you asked a nurse to examine it?
I asked a nurse after the photograph was taken.
After the photograph.
Yeah.
Did you ask a doctor, a criminalist, or a medical examiner?
No, sir, I didn't.
Did you ask anyone if they could determine how recent the cut was?
No, sir.
Did you ask anyone if they could determine the severity of the cut?
No, sir.
Did you ask anyone if they could determine the cause of the cut?
No, sir.
Did you ask anyone to examine the hand to see if there were any glass particles that may have caused the cut?
No, sir.
Was this photograph taken before or after Mr. Simpson gave a statement to you?
After.
And during the statement, Mr. Simpson told you that he...
Objection. Beyond the scope. And hearsay?
Sustained.
On what grounds?
Well, it appears that it was actually both.
Well, hearsay is admissible.
May we be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we can be heard, can't we? Just with regard to the legality of whether that's hearsay or not.
It's also beyond the scope. If counsel would like to take this witness on direct at the conclusion of cross-examination, I have no objection. But with respect to the hearsay, I'd like to be heard. That's fine.
All right. We will discuss that at sidebar. We're going to break with regard to the general proceedings, and I'll see counsel in chambers with regard to this objection. And we'll be in recess until 1:30.
Thank you.